Okay, hey guys, welcome back after a extremely long time. I had last posted a video on MDS in December. After that, I was not able to post anything. There were some family issues going on with me, health related issues. But I'm trying. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone for making our channel 2000 plus subscribers strong, which just happened a few days back. I have posted about it on my page, and I'm extremely thankful to all of you. I had never thought that so many people would like what I'm doing, and I did realize that I have become extremely slow in uploading videos now because of problems creeping up. But hopefully things are getting sorted out now, and I would be able to upload two videos per month minimum. More than that, I would be extremely happy. A lot is changing in the hematology landscape. I will again start doing what I used to do before, that is alternate between histopath and hemat, because there are many people who are messaging me telling me to make some histopath videos also. So I'll do that. I'll get back to that. And apart from that, I'll also finish with the changes and come back to the routine hematology topics. I couldn't even work on my book completely. The benign hematology book, it got stuck in the middle of my problems, but now I'm starting to complete that also. So hopefully in the next 6 months, another edition of my book will be out, which I had. The malignant version is out. There'll be an update of whatever WHO has updated in the malignant edition, as well as I'll also be dealing with benign etiologies in that book. I have added a few chapters on coagulation and blood bank as well. So it will be a complete, concise, small revision book for hematology for MBBS MD students. So without wasting much time, let us dive into today's lecture of myeloid changes that the WHO has proposed in this year's classification. So mastocytosis I had taken last time, uh, uh, where I had told you the changes. Initially also you had systemic mastocytosis and mast cell sarcoma and cutaneous. Now what they have done is they have divided it into more prominent headings. So one heading is cutaneous, has in itself become a separate entity as such a heading of a classification, which has urticarias, monomorphic and polymorphic type, diffuse mastocytosis and cutaneous mastocytoma, which can be isolated or multi-localized. Systemic mastocytosis has been there before also. Now they have divided into bone marrow. Now this is important that mastocytosis in the bone marrow itself is considered as systemic mastocytosis. Then indolent systemic, smoldering, aggressive, and systemic mastocytosis associated with other hematological malignancies. Something similar to a plasma cell dyscrasia. There is a indolent, a smoldering, then an aggressive variant to a mast cell lesion also. And then of course mast cell sarcoma. Well differentiated systemic mastocytosis entity, this is a new entity, represents a morphological variant that may occur in systemic mastocytosis type or subtype, including mast cell leukemia. So they've added a word of well differentiated systemic mastocytosis. So in summary, diagnostic criteria for mastocytosis, CD30 and any KIT mutation. This has become minor. Bone marrow mastocytosis is a new entity, and KIT D816V mutation with a VAF of greater than 10% qualifies as a B finding. So here in mastocytosis, a lot of mutations, etc., have been made minor findings or B findings. Okay. So basically, if you see a lot of mast cells, you think about mastocytosis, not only a reactive entity. In addition, bone marrow mastocytosis is now a separate subtype, as I had told you before, and a basal serum tryptase below 125 Ng per ml with no skin lesions can be seen in something known as bone marrow mastocytosis. So if you get a lot of mast cells in the bone marrow and there is and then you like right correlate with serum tryptase levels, no. Even if there are no skin lesions or even if the tryptase level is not high, still that entity is going to be called as mastocytosis. Alright. Most patients with well differentiated systemic mastocytosis KIT codon 816 mutation is not detected. That is why, if you remember, it has been made a B criteria, not a extremely important criteria. And neoplastic mast cells are usually negative for CD25 and CD2, but positive for CD30. Now, MDS, I had told you that, excuse me. So in MDS, it has been now defined into the two entities. We all know MDS, whenever you use this word, genetic mutation will always be associated with MDS. So now it has been divided into two parts. One is MDS with genetic, defining genetic abnormality, and the second is morphological MDS. Fine. So the morphologically defined was always there. It was there before also. It was based on the number of ring sideroblasts and the number of blasts that you saw. So the headings have been changed a bit. MDS with low blast count, which was EB1, EB2, and excess blast and low. Then MDS hypoplastic, which was there. Hypoplastic MDS has been an entity before also. And MDS with increased blast instead of excess blast. So all that RARS, refractory cytopenia, single lineage, all those words have been removed, multi-lineage. You need to understand that when WHO is updating something, it is not completely, removing what used to exist or what it used to define initially. So yes, dysplasia is still there. Yes, cytopenias are still there, but they just change the names. And they change the names when they realize that if there is a cytopenia in MDS, it doesn't always mean it will be a full-blown primary MDS. Or if you are getting ring sideroblasts in MDS, it doesn't mean every time that it is an MDS. Ring sideroblasts can occur in other diseases also. So there they have not removed the criteria of a ring sideroblast being seen in MDS, but they have just removed it from the name so that a person who's reading it doesn't give all the emphasis to presence of ring sideroblast, discounting the other things that you see in the marrow. Supposing there is sideroblastic anemia, you will get ring sideroblasts, but then you have to see what other things you are getting in the marrow, which are not qualifying to become a proper MDS. So that is the purpose of changing names. All right. So in MDS, which is morphologically defined, you will see MDS with low blasts is less than 5% in marrow, less than 2% in blood. Hypoplastic MDS, where they have B over here, less than 25% bone marrow cellularity, age adjusted. Right? Then MDS with increased blast is 1B, and then MDS with fibrosis. Criteria almost remains the same. 1B, one is increased blast, one is 5 to 9% blast in marrow and 2 to 4% in peripheral blood. The second EB2 जिसको कहा जाता था is 10 to 9% in BM and 5 to 19 in blood. Fibrosis 5 to 19% blast in marrow and 2 to 19% in blood. Detection of greater than 15% ring sideroblasts may substitute for SF3B1 mutation. Acceptable related terminology will be MDS with low blast and ring sideroblasts. Why? Where has this been given? Over here. This. The mutations that they've added is 5q mutation, SF3B1 mutation, and P53. P53 is bad, we all know. And MDS SF3B में देखो, they have not given a cutoff for blast. So that is why they are saying कि अगर 15% ज़्यादा ring sideroblasts मिल रहे हैं और mutations नहीं भी मिल रहे हैं, तब भी आप MDS कह सकते हो, ठीक है? And then 5q deletion alone or with any one abnormality like monosomy 7. In SF3B1 there's no 5q, ठीक है? And of course P53 is bad, so it is usually complex. So MDS, to replace the word MDN will be replacing MDS, underscoring their neoplastic nature and harmonizing terminology with MPN. Alright, so they are not going to call it a syndrome now, they're going to call it a myelodysplastic neoplasm. It sounds better and it highlights that it is a hematological neoplasm. These clonal hematopoietic neoplasms are defined by cytopenias and morphological dysplasias as indicated above. For cytopenias, CCUS, clonal cytopenia of undetermined significance, CHIP, hematopoiesis of indeterminate prognosis, ICUS, IDUS, these words are being used now. Additionally, recommended threshold for dysplasia has been set to 10%, you all know that. MDS entities are now grouped as those having defining genetic abnormality and those with morphologically defined abnormalities. I have taken it in the table there, SF31 or TP53, not multi-hit, single hit P53. Does not per se override the diagnosis of 5q. MDS P53 supersedes 5q, and so of course if you get a P53 mutation, I just told you in the table, it's bad. So if you are getting a mutation combination of P53 or 5q, you will give more importance to P53. Okay. SF3B1 is MDS with 5% ring sideroblasts and 15% RS is called MDS with low blast and ring sideroblasts. So the moment in a genetic abnormality you get 15% से ज़्यादा ring sideroblasts, just call it MDS with ring sideroblasts. No need for any cutoffs. Biallelic TP53 alteration may consist of multiple mutations or mutations with concurrent deletion of other alleles. This multi-hit mutational status results in neoplastic clone that lacks any residual wild type of P53 protein. मतलब जो P53 का म्यूटेशन होगा वो मल्टी हिट से बना है, मल्टीपल पॉइंट्स पे म्यूटेशन हुआ है, इसीलिए चांसेस कि ऐसे सेल में वाइल्ड या नॉर्मल P53 मिले उसके खत्म ही है चांसेस. MDS में मोस्टली बिकॉज मल्टी हिट P53 म्यूटेशन हो रही है, so that is the reason why you will get a very aggressive type of P53 mutation, not a wild type. Now, for those who do not know the meaning, a wild type P53 means that there's no mutation, and then there's a mutant type where there is mutation. Okay. Usually, fish with a probe set specific for PV locus on 17p13.1 is used. Loss of genetic material at PV locus may also be inferred by NGS. VAF of 50% may be regarded as presumptive, not definitive evidence of copy loss. This is calculated in cytogenetic analysis, and more than 50% loss is indicative of a P53 mutation. When two or more P53 mutations detected, they usually affect both alleles and can be considered as multi-hit. Biallelic P53 may be regarded as AML equivalent for therapeutic considerations. Then comes hypoplastic MDS, a T cell mediated immune attack on hematopoietic stem T progenitor cell, along with oligoclonal expansion of CD8 cytotoxic T cells. Hypoplastic MDS means there will be something killing cells in the bone marrow. So T cell mediated immune attacks on hematopoietic stem and progenitor cells will be there, which will kill progenitor cells, so nothing will be formed, but there will be mutations or there will be morphological evidence of MDS also. There will be overproduction of interferons and TNF alphas. Several features overlap the triad of hypoplastic MDS, PNH, and aplastic anemia. You all know this. Patients with hypoplastic MDS have a sustainable response to agents used in patients with AA. Matlab, they might respond to things like ATG. Then single lineage, multi-lineage dysplasia is now considered optional. So I told you, this is very subjective. Dysplasias are very subjective. So something which I call dysplasia less than 10%, you will call maybe 10%. That is why they are trying to refine MDS and fine tune it into, exact criteria. Because there's so many things which give secondary MDS like picture. That is the reason so much work has been done on MDS, not on other myeloid neoplasms. Updated MDS classification has CCUS and which obviates the need for NOS or unclassified. Then the boundary between MDS and AML is softened, but the 20% blast cutoff to define AML is retained. You have read it before also that a lot of MDS may progress into an AML, and a lot of features overlap. Even sometimes in an AML you get a lot of dysbiosis. So accept the fact that you have to have 20% blasts to call something AML. Other things that are there are salient practical challenges underpinning arguments for reassessment. What it means to say is why a reassessment is required to come define or blur the line between MDS and AML. Any blast-based cutoff is arbitrary and cannot reflect biological continuity naturally inherent in myeloid pathogenic mechanisms. What it means to say is if we have a cutoff in myeloid neoplasms, especially when MDS converting to AML is a genetic spectrum, वो एक there is a progression going because you have seen even in MDS we have blast counts, cutoffs. All right, how can you be so sure that less than 20% is MDS and the same thing more than 20% becomes AML? So a group is arguing that you cannot just put 100% like a cutoff line कि no 20 तो AML उससे नीचे तो MDS. No, especially in myeloid neoplasms, because it is a continuum of disease. Features will overlap, even genetics might overlap, and then treatment depends on it, prognosis depends on it. Blast enumeration is subject to sampling variation. If you have a more hemodiluted sample, maybe lesser blasts. A good sample, more blasts. So if something is 18 with dysbiosis, why can't it be an AML? Actually, it might be 25, and then you'll call it AML. So that creates a confusion. No gold standard for blast enumeration exists. All right. So these are the arguments being put forth. Then childhood MDS, enhanced specificity of disease terminology. Childhood MDS with low blast and increased blast, same blast cutoff. Low blast is hypocellular and NOS, and increased blast you see a lot of blast with dysbiosis. So in such a case, would you call it MDS with IB or AML? Supposing this 19 is actually 25 and your sample only showed you 18 or 19 blasts with dysbiosis, it could also be AML. That is the argument that they are giving. And monosomy 7q deletion or complex karyotypes are associated with increased risk of AML. I mean, you've seen in MDS, everything changes into AML in the end. So they want things to be very watertight so that we don't miss an AML and call it an MDS. Okay, because the treatment differs a bit. Acquired cytogenetic abnormality and RAS pathway mutations are more common in childhood MDS, increased blast compared to low blast. Summary: MDS renamed MDN, MDS genetic updated to 5q SF3B1 and allelic P53, hypoplastic MDS now recognized as a distinct entity, MDS with low blast is a new term, increased blast is a new term, and childhood MDS terminology has been updated.